assign partial credit. If you are pretty close, you will still get some partial credit. Okay, pre-4 is pre-1, but the condition of the conditional statement being false. Okay, that's basically just from the template or the structure of a conditional statement. Then we can expand what is pre-1. So once again, being able to copy and paste can save you some time. Okay, and you can also simplify not x is greater than y to x is less than or equal to y. That part is optional. If you want to just keep not x is greater than y, that's fine. Okay, there's no problem with not simplifying everything. Then we work on post 2. Post 2 is based on this assignment statement. So before you can indicate what is post 2, you have to first explain to me the right-hand side of line 2 refers to the left-hand side. Okay, that's the first requirement in order to use the substitution rule. Then you have to say the right-hand side of line 2, give it a name, f of x is fine. Okay, you can use g of x, whatever. But you have to tell me what it is as an inverse. And the inverse function called f prime of x. Some of you use the f minus 1 approach to indicate it's an inverse function. That's fine. You don't have to remember how to use superscript. If you use Firefox, the superscript would have worked. That's great. If not, that's fine. I understand what you mean. So the inverse function is x minus 1 because when you're adding 1 to undo it, you just subtract 1 from it. Then you can say use the substitution rule. So that means post 2 becomes the result of the substitution based on pre-2. We are replacing the variable on the left-hand side of the assignment, which in this case is x, by f prime applied to x. Then you just expand everything. Once again, copy and paste is good because you can just copy this entire thing. Oh, sorry. I'll just go ahead and expand it here first. X, and then, oh, that's right. I got it. Okay, there you go. And then f prime of x is x minus 1. So after the substitution, you have x minus 1 equals p, and y equals q, and x minus 1 is greater than y. Okay, is that okay so far? Okay. So that's done. The post 2 is done. Now we work on post 4. When you explain post 4, you have to do the same thing or similar things. You say the right-hand side of line 4 does not refer to the left-hand side or something to the same effect. And as a result of that, you have to use the forget rule. The forget rule is actually easier to apply. You say post 4 equals the result of forgetting something in pre-4. What are we forgetting? Anything that mentions y, not x. Okay, it is the variable on the left-hand side that matters. Okay, but after this, you also have to tell me that after this, y equals x, not y gets x. Okay, if someone gives me y left arrow x, that will not receive any points because that I cannot specify an assignment operation as a part of a condition. Okay, let me just explain what I mean by that. This is not saying the same thing as that. One is an operation to say that make y the same as x. The other one is a statement saying that x does equal to y or y does equal to x. So those two things are entirely different things, and that's the whole reason why I reserve the use of an equality symbol for equality and use the left arrow symbol to indicate assignment operation. So that's one thing that I think some people will, may lose points over. Okay, so the next thing is to expand what is pre-4. So we got pre-4 over here. Once again, copy and paste is nice. And we are forgetting everything that we knew about y and restate that y does equal to x at this point. X equals to p does not do anything with y, so we can keep that. But the other two we have to get rid of. because y equals to q may not be true anymore once we change y. X is less than or equal to y may not be true anymore once we change y. Okay, are there any questions?
Can I redo that?
Sorry? So we only have this much left, and that's my post condition of line 4. Post 5 is post 2 or post 4.
I have a question on the last line of post 4.
Yep.
Can you also assume that y is equal to p? Since y is
Y
equal to
equals
x?
p. Yes, you can. You can state additional facts. That's okay, but the minimum is to state at least this much. Yep.
What about post 2?
With post 2,
Can you simplify that post 2?
you can simplify. It depends on whether your simplification is consistent with whatever is before the simplification. If you just leave it like this, you would have received full points already. Because doing simplification is not the core of this class. So now we have two kind of long expressions. One is post 2. Once again, being able to copy and paste is helpful. So the other one is over here. Copy and paste. So that's the answer. If anyone gives me like this as the final answer and with all the explanations, that would have received full credit for this question. Are there any questions about this one? No? Okay. I felt this one is fairly standard. I kind of felt that, it's not a bad question. Does not take up too much time. And yet it is a good test to see whether you guys can apply what you have learned. I just clicked save without submitting. So that means, it's in the system, except I did not move on to the next question. Okay, so the next question is basically the same as the first one in terms of the algorithm. The only part that has changed is x equals to 400 and y also equals to 400 as my initial condition. So let's go ahead and do it again the same way. So I will save link as, for some reason in this browser, when I right-click save link as, it does not do the same thing. But whenever it's giving me a choice to save the file, I will save the file. And I can save it back to the desktop. Now, since the other one also has the same name, I will probably just change this name to a 1B just so that I can differentiate between the two files so I don't accidentally re-upload the same file. Okay. So now I go to my spreadsheet program and open up the file from here. Go. So you can see it is exactly the same code as the other one, and I have to reconstruct the columns. But if you have the other one available, you can actually just copy and paste the column heading because they will be identical. We have comments, we have line number, we have X, and then we have Y. And let's make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, same thing. The first line has to be a pre-line to indicate the precondition of the variables. In this case, it's 400 and 400. The next line indicates what line 1 does. Okay, line 1 is evaluating the condition. X is greater than Y is false. Now, since this is a conditional statement and there's no else corresponding to it, that means when the condition is false, we get out of the entire conditional statement. If someone gives me line 6, I will not take any points off. Okay, if the next line to trace is line 6, I'll just say, well, it's not necessary to say line 6, but yet no points will be deducted. The proper answer to me is just say post, and we're done. So this one has 10 points. Okay, there's 10 points right here. I think that's pretty easy. Okay, it's an easy 10 points. Yep. What about 5? What about 5? 5 is inside the conditional statement. When the condition is false, I skip over the entire conditional statement, the content.
That's was a trick.
Now, if I did this, it would be a trick. If I had done that, it would be tricky, but I did not do that. I refrained from doing that sort of thing.
Actually, like it should be after and
If it is if it's after and if, then you have to do it anyway. But since it is not after,
Or if there was an else before.
or if it is an else before it, then you have to do it, but only for this test case, but not in the previous test case. Yep.
And how many points like all exam?
I have not allocated the points yet. I have just determined, how many points will be allocated to a particular question. Well, the total points will be 60 points, and this one only has 10 points. But I have yet to determine, which part of it is worth like 2 points, which part is worth 4 points, which part is worth another point, and so on and so forth. It all depends on, I do a quick scan of what, people turn in first, and then I will decide, okay, these are the most common things that I should be looking for, and then I will decide how many points to assign to each one. Okay? Any other questions about this one? Now, with this question, if someone misread this statement and say, oh, I thought it was a 0, I didn't see the 1, and, accordingly change the, well, in this case, it doesn't matter because it won't even execute that line. But in the other case, if someone misread a constant and say, oh, instead of 10, I wrote down a 0, I would take maybe like 1 point off from 20 points. Okay, because it is a careless mistake. Some points has to be taken off, but it won't be, major. In this case, there's really nothing to, say, because if you look at the actual answer of the trace, it is quite simple. So this one is a little bit harder to assign partial credit, because this it's really hard. In order to assign partial credit, a question or the answer must have like multiple parts. This one has basically one part, right? I mean, this, the only one part that matters is this line. Being whether people are conforming to the standard or not, that's already pretty much a given. So I'll decide, how many points to assign to this particular question. But I don't think it's a bad question. It's, the only thing about it is, some people may think it is deceptively simple. So I'll just go ahead and do my own thing, specify the file. And you can see that my browser never crashes when I try to upload a file. I do not understand why it's doing it, in the lab. Why it's, hanging up all the time. So we'll go ahead and click the next question, which will automatically upload the answer of this question. Okay, this is the last one. The last question is actually not hard. Okay, if you guys understand what each statement does, all you have to do is to basically say, okay, after line 3, now that we know that z equals 3, y equals k minus 1 for some constant k, and x equals k, what do I know before line 3? That's the question. Okay, because the precondition of a statement of a line is asking, what do you know for sure before that line? Now, does it mean that we have to use mathematical derivations? No, you don't have to, because it's stated right here that you do not have to use math proofs, but you do have to give me some reasoning. Okay, as long as you explain why this is the precondition, that's fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to tackle this one. Okay, the first thing you have to do is to say, well, what is pre-3? Okay, well, there are several things you can do. Okay, you can try to do the explanation before stating what pre-3 is, or you can state what is pre-3, before you do the explanations. Okay, so you can say, since line 3 is not reversible, we cannot know anything about z before line 3. Okay, that's one way to put it. Because, sorry, you can say overwrites the value.